Just a second, please. Good morning, everybody. I hope that you're now in full energy for the morning. There's a lot of colleagues of some of us has asked us to circulate the list of mails and to keep in touch also for the future. Now, we want to know whether there is anybody who is against this, because we have to respect the data protection. Now, if someone is against, he or she should not raise but please tell us to the registration, so we will take out your name from the list. I think it's difficult to ask you to sign every time, so I trust you that by noon, so we can circulate the list after. Thank you.
Okay, a very good morning to you all. Hope you're all fresh. This session is going to be about the interface between academia and industry and how to tune the different organizations towards effective tech transfer, and also to get a view of the whole setting as an ecosystem, as an innovation ecosystem. So, my name is Matthias Dinnet, and I'm working at the JRC with my colleague here, Elena Andonova. We are managing the IP of the European Commission, and we also work hands-on and at the policy level with tech transfer. So, and first of all, I would like to present my eminent co-moderator, Maurizio Fagiani, and we will take care of you this morning. I will moderate the first part, and Maurizio will take the last part after the break. So just a few words before kicking off. So we'll be looking at research-based collaborations and deal-making in this interface that I mentioned. We will also look at links between excellent science and successful commercialization or tech transfer. We will look into ways of tuning organizations towards this by internal policy or even at the regional level. And also, hopefully, strategies to bridge the gap between what industry wants and what academia can actually deliver in these terms. So I give the floor to Maurizio. You have some slides?
Sure.
Great.
Set it up. Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Trieste, and welcome to this seminar, to this roundtable, which I really hope will be very interesting for all of you, and also for us. We are all here to learn, and we are all here to exchange experiences and good practices in this very, let's say, important topic we are discussing, which is the collaboration between industry and academia for improving the society. Just start with a quote, and I used to say when we discuss about this that if we would have created one company for each discussion we had, we probably will not need any discussion anymore. So the end of the story will probably be, okay, great, now we have learned everything, or we have more or less all the, let's say, indication for doing that. It's time to do it. But anyway, in order to sort of kick off this roundtable, I have prepared a few slides. Not that much concentrating on the importance of the topic, because I think it's evident, but trying to sort of set the scene of what is, and perhaps more important, what is going to be, and what is going to happen in this scenario for the next years. The point here is basically the starting point of the reasoning is this. This is the triangle of the, let's say, the main actors in this movie: science and sorry to put science up there, but I am a scientist, so I have to select one possible, let's say, top of the story, technology and society. And in my opinion, these three actors didn't play very well together in the last years. And it's needed to sort of make an implosion of these three words rather than an explosion. And that's because technology makes life easier, no way, to the society, and the society benefits from the technology. But science informs technology and gives hints and gives suggestions to technology, and technology should perhaps demand more to science. We will probably touch this point later when we will talk about the time and about the different objectives that academia has with respect to the industry. But we will not forget the possibility that science improves society directly. And I'm a professor, actually I'm director of the University of Trieste, and I would love to see and to say that this is a three-body interaction. I'm a chemical engineer, so it's a three-body interaction, and everybody knows that if a two-body reaction is difficult to occur, a three-body reaction is almost impossible, unless you have a catalyst. And the catalyst, in my opinion, is the university and the higher education. I'm saying this because things are getting more and more complex in the future. We were used to discuss and to identify and to work in disciplines, we and the academia, but also in the industry in some cases. The idea is to divide the world in the disciplines, but challenges are not concerning one single discipline, unfortunately, or fortunately, I should say. So the big challenges of the world in the next 10 or 20 years will be those. We will face with the problem of energy, water, environment, food, human health, poverty, migrations. There's no way that one single discipline can tackle and perhaps solve one of these problems. And this has been recognized, of course, in the structure of Horizon 2020, where key enabling technology are there, but are not the most important elements. The most important element is the challenge, the society challenges, the impact of the key enabling technology. So again, we get back to the triangle of before. This is at European level, but also at local level. This is actually a very local smart specialization strategy implementation in this region, Friuli, Venezia Giulia. You see that some very important areas have been identified, and most of them are, even though this is more related to structural funds and therefore to the development of the society in terms of companies, but nonetheless we also have something which is let's say multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. This leads to the partial conclusion that what we in academia should stress on, and I normally say we should concentrate on the 3 C's: culture, curiosity, and creativity. I will give you also the answer of my statement or justification of my statement in a moment, together with competency. And as you will see in a moment, I believe that Europe is strong in this, because we in Europe, we have culture since 1,000 years. Our students are very curious, and this is what we need for the development. And a little bit of curiosity of young people should sort of permeate in the industries as well. And people, at least in this area, are people to whom creativity is really something they have in their DNA. Okay, let's look at the other side and see what's going on in the industry and what will be industry in the next 10 or 15 years. This is just a list of disruptive technologies. This is just 10 disruptive technology pointed out some years ago, well, some months ago, I should say. And I don't want to read all of them, but you see that there are some buzzwords here: the Internet of Things and the clouds and the 3D printing and advanced materials and renewable electricity. If we concentrate on digitalization, by the way, you will not hear probably anymore in the future the word or the acronyms ICT, Information Communication Technology. You will probably hear about digitalization, because digitalization has something to do with ICT, but is much more pervasive and will penetrate all the markets. And you see here where are we heading to? Merging the real world with the virtual world. That's something we already have. Intelligence will be scattered everywhere. Smart machines, Internet of Things, and the new IT reality will emerge. Will emerge because we are facing this problem, which is not a problem, fortunately. We evolved from, let's say, the first platform to the third platforms, in which we have billions of users connected, and we have millions of apps. And this is actually the background or the humus on which Industry 4.0 has developed or will develop and will surely be disrupting for the next years. This is going to lead to a continuous industry transformation. And you see some of the buzzwords that I already pronounced: Internet of Things, cognitive systems, 3D printing, robotics. This will change the world now, or perhaps I should say has already started to change the world, based on the enormous amount of data that we are collecting so far, and we are perhaps not very good, or at least not all companies are very good in exploiting the data. Google does, Amazon does, Apple does. But what about the medium enterprises in Italy or in Slovenia or in Croatia or in Greece? Perhaps they don't do it. This is actually our future, which is not which is a present actually. Probably you have not heard about Oli, but Oli is an autonomous 3D printed bus that is able to talk to the passengers. Perhaps was science fiction since, let's say, some years ago. Today is real. It's going to be tough to drive or to move this object in Naples, that's for sure. But I'm quite convinced that it's one possibility. Well, one engineer, a friend of mine, asked me, but what about the batteries? Did you print also the batteries? I say, no, okay, no, we didn't print that. We didn't print the batteries, but the structure of the bus was 3D printed. And another interesting thing, this is something in which the US put a lot of money, and President Obama is enthusiastic about this, the Materials Genome Initiative, the MGI. And again, it's a combination of simulation, experimental data, and big data, and business analytics that are able to extract data from the big data to give answers. To give answers to whom? To the commercialization of a new product, to the production of a new system, to a new process, to change the industry. And this changing will have a dramatic impact on employment. I always cite this paper by Free and Osborne, is already 2013, and they made a survey and a study about the probability of massive reduction of occupation by 2030 for some occupations. We have good news here. Telemarketers will probably disappear by 2030, so we will probably be not be disturbed on Saturday morning for changing the operator or the carrier for telecommunication. But you see that many other occupations will have a high probability of disappear. And most of them are located as an intermediary between the final user and the production. So this is something we should take very much into account. Another thing that is that this slide tells clearly is that occupation with a high intellectual content. Look at down here: dentists, athletic trainer, clergy, architects. I just put chemical engineers just, by chance. Those, yeah, right. Important people, of course. And you see that those, there's no massive reduction of occupation for those. So intellectual professions are important and will be more and more important. And this is not just a statistical study. It's also what the World Economic Forum said few weeks ago, basically. 65% of children entering primary school today will ultimately end up working in completely new job types that don't yet exist. Responsibility for this is very much in the higher education system, in the education system in general, but it's also an industry that has to help us depicting what is important for the future. But the future is now, because consider that it takes about 10 years, at least 10 years, to form a profession able to do this. And you see, 2020, complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, management of people. That's something different from, say, being able to dig a hole or build a wall. We don't need building walls, people. So, technology transfer as a link between research and industry. This is just, some stone that I throw in the lake. Of course, university is producing and market is using, and you see there are several ways of transferring this technology, which is a two-way transferring of ideas, licensing, creation of new company on one direction, and the contract research on the other direction. But who's going to pay for that? And who's going to put resources for that? The point here is that if you ask industry to do some project together, the answer they have is normally, when I will have the results, I need the results over coffee, over lunch, and overnight. This is a position. On the other hand, university needs time for developing studies. And there is a big difference between, we will probably get back to this point, between incremental innovation and disruptive innovation. In this graph here, you see who's supposed to fund and who is supposed to give resources to, let's say, the basic research or the blue sky research, and who is going to supposed to give resources to the innovation, incremental innovation. If some of these actors don't do what they have to do, the system collapses, and this is the point. Please remember that most of the technology that we are now using, and industry is making a lot of money out of them, were funded by public funds, not by private funds. Internet, laser, hydrogen technology, fuel cells, all this comes from public investments, not from private investment. So I said, who's going to pay for that? Somebody has to pay for that. But if you think that all this is expensive, try ignorance, and you'll see the difference. So with this, I think we can start our panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next in line is Elena Andonova, my colleague. She's going to talk about common grounds for academia-industry relations. We need to speed up if you want a little break in the middle. So from now on, it's 10 minutes. You're a special case. Thank you.
That's going to be a tough one. Hello, can you hear me? Hi. Good morning, everyone. for the moment while I'm loading my presentation, can I ask you a question? How many people here come from industry or have experience in business industry? Okay, that's good. And how many are academia focused? Fantastic. So it's a good mixture. I'm very glad. So, first of all, I would like to say, good morning, and it's a pleasure to be part of this panel. Apparently, we have 10 minutes each, so I'll try to be as efficient as I can in sharing my experiences and thoughts on the pertinent topic and issue of how to bridge academia and industry. Now I'm going to start with saying a few words about myself. So earlier this year, I joined the Joint Research Center, and I'm a colleague of Matthias and Željko here in Giancarlo Carati's team. We are focusing on policy making in technology transfer, as well as managing the intellectual property rights, as Matthias mentioned, derived from the research institutes of the European Commission. Beforehand, I spent around 6.5 years working for the technology transfer company, which is part of the University of Oxford. This is where I gained most of my technology transfer related know-how, let's say. There, my experience was split between working with regional, national governments and institutes and advising in the creation of innovation and technology transfer ecosystems, but I also have done a lot of day-to-day operational management of technology transfer projects. So it was a combination of the two. Before that, I worked for Lehman Brothers. They don't exist anymore in the corporate finance and security. I think that back in 12th century, we had knowledge and technology transfer taking place, and universities, in my view, were set up with the idea that it was understood back then that they can be a valuable source of social and economic impact. So I like to say this, it's a bit cynical, but one of the first spin-outs, in my view, is Cambridge University, who was spun out of Oxford, right? So, but going back to the point, you probably know this person. This is Alexander Fleming, who managed to isolate chemically penicillin. Now, this guy, Scottish by background, was working for what is nowadays Imperial College, and in 1928, he came up with a chemical formula for penicillin. At that time, he didn't find much interest in his invention, neither from the scientific nor the business community. Now, 15 years later, there are two guys who are working at Oxford University, Flory and Chain, I think are their names. They thought that there is value in this invention. They tried to raise money and to see whether penicillin can be turned into drug and massively developed, but they couldn't get funding in the UK. So they went overseas and found funding in the US, as it happens even nowadays. So they got funding, and by 1944, there were billions of penicillin items produced. And the effect, besides the economic effect, was huge, because millions of lives saved up until today. So I don't think I need to convince you very much about the benefits of this linkage, of this relationship, science and business. But on this slide, I want to put those thoughts into perspective. So in my view, there are two types of impact from this relationship. There is direct and there is the indirect. And of course, academia can win and business can win. It can be a win-win situation. So for academics, working in business or with industry means that they can increase their skills. They can learn about even science gaps that are out there in the market. They can increase their welfare as well, because they get more funding, and very often this is actually personal funding if we're talking about academic consultancy in particular. And they can become more employable because they gain new skills. So these are the direct benefits for academics. There's some indirect. The organizations that they represent benefit. industry-academia relationship, even if it starts as academic consultancy, can lead into more research funding coming from business to this research organization. So there is a positive spillover effect. Also, this helps organizations to raise in the rankings, which is very important for them, etc., etc. Sometimes it's about better research facilities because business fund equipment and facilities at universities. Then businesses, on the other hand, can also win. Why? Because, well, if they license new IP, for example, or work to solve a technical problem with an academic, they can increase their efficiency, maybe better production, lower costs, maybe they enhance their product so they can sell them at a higher price, they diversify their product offering, etc., etc. And these are only the direct benefits. There are also some indirect. Sometimes working with academia helps businesses to craft a better strategy for the long term. They also can increase their market share, for example, and their company profile can be enhanced and they can be seen in a different light. And all of this is actually leading to ultimately more economic development, more social and more cultural development. Of course, it's not easy to do, otherwise we wouldn't be here this weekend discussing these topics. So there's certain challenges that I think we should be trying to overcome. And in my view, they are economic and cultural. Now, the economic challenges focus on the fact that these are two different entities, two different creatures, if you like, that speak different languages, right? They have different expectations. So what an academic sees and its excellent output can be seen by industries as a really flaky or marginal solution. So there is a sometimes mismanagement in the expectations. Excuse me. Very often academics don't like to work under pressure. That can be an issue because businesses like to be efficient. So there has to be more room to breathe for the researchers. So these diverging timescales can also have an economic impact of some sort. And very often academic organizations, research institutes are very administrative burden. That can be another obstacle. Having said that, there are also cultural issues, and I think this is where industry has very strong role to play in being more open-minded, understanding better the language of the academics, and understand the motivations of academics, because motivations can also be very different. The academics want to save the world, the businesses want to make money, right? I have 2-3 minutes left. I wanted to talk briefly about the evolving technology transfer models. I think that technology transfer is evolving. Open innovation is becoming more and more important. The European Commission in particular is focusing a lot of attention at the moment on open science, open data, open innovation. We're talking about changing world. And I think that this changing world will actually help tackle some of those challenges that I mentioned. Why? Because open innovation is about co-creation. Now we're having the paradigm changing, meaning the supply side, which used to be the research organizations, and the demand side, which used to be industry, well, now they can be even the other way around. Now we have more players involved in technology transfer, we have more support, more stakeholders, we have incubators, we have science parks, we have investors, and they can all work together to make or facilitate ultimately, you know, this relationship between business and science to thrive. So we can have new products, so we can solve social development and economic issues. Now, in terms of my practical tips for people when they deal with the other counterparties, I think that if there is more dialogue and openness, and the earlier it takes place in the process, that's better. I've seen that many times, a lot of efforts wasted because academia and industry engage too late in the process. Also, we have these macro-regional efforts on the policy side. We're trying to support the creation of science parks and incubators and hubs. And this will put the different stakeholders together. This will put academics and business people together. And I think that this obviously interaction will be beneficial and will help solve some of the problems. It's always good to improve your expectations in terms of and understand the culture of the other side. Also, we have at the moment at the Commission another initiative which is has to do with dealing with open data and the fact that, as it was mentioned by Maurizio, that publicly funded research, you know, the outcome of this research, the IP that's derived, the data that's derived from this research has to be made available. So I'm not saying that it has to be free, but at least it has to be made available for the users and for the public. So there is going to be new ways to regulate the usage and the ownership of this data, et cetera, et cetera. And the most important for me is foster entrepreneurial culture, which I think is in a way naturally happening because universities are seen more and more as a source of creative talent. Students are engaged early in the process. There is a case study I wanted to finish. This is really my slide, Matthias, if I may. It's a platform which is called Demola, created in Finland back in 2008. Now it's international and it operates in, I think, 8 or more countries. This platform, which is in a way a virtual platform, but links business, companies with students. Companies come and propose a problem, and students work in teams, co-create together, work collaboratively, and come up with solutions. The results are very tangible. This is a good example of open innovation platform because you come up with demos and prototypes. These demos are then demonstrated to the companies, and the companies can have the opportunity to license intellectual property. And they have already engaged with 150 companies and gain several millions, I think, euros in terms of licensing fees already. So it's education, it's practical, it fits the curiosity of the European students and researchers, as Maurizio was mentioning. So I think I'm going to finish with it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I like your way of likening Cambridge with a spin-out. That's a nice one. I'm going to remember that. So next one is Anwar Aridi from the World Bank. He's going to talk a little bit about the initiatives of the bank, possibly here in this region. Yes? Possibly.
Thank you, Mauricio, Matthias. Good morning, everyone. I guess I'm the least experienced among this panel. I've never worked for a technology transfer office. The only relevant experience I had is I worked for an independent research institution called SRI, Stanford Research Institution, which I think is one of the most underrated, successful technology transfer institutions for the last 60 years. It's the company that brought you Siri on your iPhone. It's a spin-off. It's the company that did Intuitive Surgical. And I'm saying this to link back to what Mauricio just mentioned, is that a lot of these technologies that we have in our market are publicly funded, but what is mostly not discussed is that it's publicly funded for defense purposes. So it's also an ironic story is that for our human advancement and for the technologies that we use, we had to build these for war machines. So it's an irony, but these companies, most of the times, are dependent on public funding for defense purposes, but then the technology transfer happens, and then we have these technologies in the market. But how this happens is a very complicated story. So the title of my presentation is Technology Transfer and Ecosystem Approach. I'm taking a step back and looking at the macro level from a public policy perspective more than the micro TTO kind of perspective. I'm going to talk about 5 things. It's bore you with a little bit of economics of technology transfer, and then talk about contextual challenges to this region of Eastern Europe, the Balkan, and ex-Soviet kind of transition economies, and then talk a little bit about the framework and talk about some of our project experiences in this region and leave you with just 3 points to remember, because I know you're not going to remember. So on the economics of technology transfer, to remind you of the definition of Rosner of what technology transfer is, it's basically the formal and informal movement of know-how, skill, technology from one organization to another. And I'm stressing the informal part here because most of the times it's forgotten and we always think about the hard technology transfer. And this process suffers from inherently 3 main problems, and discuss something similar in the smart specialization discussion is the information asymmetry. So we have a problem of the valuation of the discovery. Most of the times, the research that we do in research organization and the universities is at technology readiness levels of 1, 2. The industry is interested in technology readiness 6, 7. And again, linking back, the TRL expression also comes from the defense industry of how they classify the readiness of technologies to market. So we have different understanding and information about the valuation of these discoveries and inventions. We have also uncertainty about the appropriation, who owns what. I'm the inventor, I invented, and then there's the industry, and that complex system of who owns what is also, and that's the discussion of the Bayh-Dole Act that they passed in the US, and also recently, like 8 years ago in Norway, they ended the professors' privileges, where many universities, also many countries in Northern Europe followed the example, and now the inventor only owns 1/3 and the university owns 2/3. So this is a very complicated aspect of who owns what from the invention, the funder or the researcher. The second main problem is, and also it was touched upon, is the incentive misalignment. We have completely different incentive structure in the academic work and research institution work, which is driven by academic accomplishment. Publishing and moving up the rank is completely different than the incentive of the private sector, which are more immediate. They want a patent, they want to make profit out of the invention. So there is a cultural difference. And also on the legal and regulatory aspect, there are many impediments of researchers sometimes are deprived from working on contract research and providing consultancies in other countries and different frameworks. So that incentive structure is very, very important. And the third important thing is also the access to specialized resources and support mechanisms. This process does not work just organically. There are things that are needed to be in place to make it happen, and that's one of important thing, and we discussed it yesterday with the person from Google, is the matching aspect. Both sides don't know what they have is going on, and that matching is basically like a dating app. If they know what their interests are, and then the matching happen, and then they can move things forward. But that's a very important. The market intelligence aspect and finances, also that valley of death in the graph that Mauricio was showing. There is a segment in that graph where the industry is not interested in investing because it's high risk and there's no clear return on that investment. So that's when private monies goes in, and on the basic side and the prototyping side and proof of concept, and that valley is very important, and if it's not bridged, then the process is disrupted. And the skills level, there are certain tacit skills and tacit knowledge that are needed to be in place, whether on the valuation side, whether on the commercialization, and that does not happen only with just attending 1 or 2 trainings. This is learning by doing, and then doing many deals. It's the same as in the venture capital or the angel investment world. It's just not something that you just take a course and know how to do it. You need to go through the process. Now, to remind you, the main challenge is to generate a systemic process of technology transfer from public and universities to the industry to have that transformational change in our regions and have new technologies and have more competitive and innovative firms. But there are some challenges that are, or from our perspective, that are kind of detected in the countries of this region, whether on the Balkan or Eastern European countries or what we call transition economies. And you can categorize them in different ways, but I put them in this way. There are legacy issues. Research organizations in this part of the regions were set up to kind of serve and complement and help state-owned enterprises, whether shipbuilding, whether technology production, or defense industry. So they had their client right there, ready. They come with a problem, they help, and they work. This has changed. These institutions had no link with the SME sector. That culture of working with SMEs and independent private firms is not there. So that legacy issue is a little bit challenging, and it's common among these countries. And by the way, ECA is the term we use for Europe and Central Asia. That's a department in the World Bank. It doesn't mean anything. But the other main challenge is also touched upon in the last 2 days is the SME capacity and private investment in R&D. We know in OECD countries that 2/3 of R&D spending is in the private sector, while 1/3 is from the public side. In these countries, it's the other way around. So there is way bigger importance for R&D funding, but very low investment from the R&D sector. So there's not much demand pull from independent enterprises and private SMEs to request for technology from research organizations. The third point, which I touched upon, is also the commercialization, specialized skills and capacity, and that has been seeded for the last 10, 15 years. This training is one of these efforts to build capacity on what technology transfer means, how it works, what are the components. But again, learning by doing is the real test of how to do these things. And the fourth point is the whole ecosystem, the institutional framework, whether it's the IPR regime, the access to finance, the degree of internationalization, how many multinational companies we have in our economy. So it's the framework conditions and the linkages that we have. Here I'm going to just talk about generally the framework, because understanding the framework will help us detect where the problems are to fix them, not just to put things in a nice way. When we understand what are the pieces of the puzzles, we can detect where the problems are and do interventions from a public policy perspective. So from this aspect, as you see, it's not a one way, as emphasized before. It's a circle that goes between the research community, whether universities or independent research institutions, and the private sector. And the private sector represents SMEs, existing firms, or companies that do not exist yet. And those are the spin-offs and the new companies that we want to spur. And on the supply side, we have the research capability and orientation. We need a healthy mix of basic and applied research, engineering, and it depends on the level of sophistication of the economy. There is more need for adaptation and diffusion of technology rather than having disruptive technology. So it doesn't. I worked before on smaller countries and smaller islands, and then when we have meetings with public officials, they want to do space research and nanotechnology, and it makes way more sense to do more on the adaptive and the diffusion side to build absorptive capacity and have the right mix of research, then moving to more basic science aspects. And on the supply side also, we touched upon the institutional and the legal framework. On the demand side, and that's the most important aspect, is the pull from the private sector. That's what drives technology transfer, is the need of these enterprises. And that's also governed by the level of sophistication of the regional economy, whether we have multinational companies, that the 3 companies that were on stage yesterday, they are the ones who were driving. They were going to the universities, detecting, going there with questions and problems, collaborating with departments. And usually these collaborations do not happen between the president of the company and the president of the university. No, it's the department, it's the mechanical engineering department, it's the electrical engineering department, and those informal linkages that happen. And of course, it's the entrepreneurial culture, how much the whole culture of spin-offs and starting new businesses and incentive structure for the researchers to move their inventions from just publications and patents and to make a buck out of it and make a spin-off. And then the intermediary support, which are the services that we discussed before. If I needed to do a prototype, if I needed to do a proof of concept, who's going to pay for it? If I'm going to file for a patent, if there is no one who's going to pay for it, who's going to do this. I'm going to move a little bit faster also on the framework. So those are the exterior aspects of the framework, but the transfer itself, also I stress the informal aspect of technology transfer. And that's not only the licensing or the spin-offs or the consultations that take part, it's also things like we're having here, these informal interactions between industry and university. Most of the things happen on a proximity basis. Silicon Valley is because of Stanford, of the universities there, of MIT and Harvard, the proximity of interactions, whether meeting in a cafe or these things, that's technology transfer too. And the most important part that also is usually missed, the most important aspect of technology transfer is the education itself and the training, especially on applied research. Industry is attracted to countries to invest in R&D is based on the talent available in that country. The big companies like Microsoft, IBM, and Google, they did not invest in R&D in India 25 years ago. They invested 15 years ago. And more these companies are moving to developing and emerging economies because they have a trust in the talent available there, and that's called asset augmentation rather than asset exploitation. The third dimension I want to mention is that technology transfer is one aspect of building an innovative, competitive firm, and that is related to the firm capability. But we have the other buckets that we need to fill in, which is the market, the financing aspect, and the environment. This is a complicated, very confusing graph, but basically it puts all the needed support mechanisms to building a competitive firm over the life cycle of the firm. So we need to understand that technology transfer is one aspect of it. Access to skills and trained researchers is also very important, and the functioning intellectual property right is on the environment side. I'm gonna just run you quickly because the details are there in the presentation, but we had 3 different experiences that I wanted to highlight, one in Serbia, Croatia, and Kazakhstan. And the 3 common aspects of it, as I mentioned, the challenges are very common, low capacity, lack of demand in the private sector, the culture is not there to working with SMEs. So what we tried to do, we had to devise interventions on both the demand side and the supply side, working with the enterprises and working with the universities and research institutions, and that's the restructuring aspect, and providing those financial interventions to cover whether the prototyping or the proof of concept aspects or the collaboration mechanisms that we can incentivize private sector to work with research institution and help them work together. The details are on the slide for the 3 projects. I'm not going to bore you with them. I'll jump to the last slide, which are basically the main takeaways. Tech transfer is not only a technology transfer office. This is just the formal aspect of doing. Training applied researchers is a very important thing. That's the human capital resources that we need for attracting companies, for having these researchers starting their own companies and spinning off and bringing new products and services to us. And the informal aspect also should not be de-emphasized. The conferences, the bringing people together from both sides is very, very important. The ecosystem approach is also very important because it gives us this helicopter view of what's going on, and if we don't have a piece that connects the process, then the process is disrupted. And that's on the financial side. If we have resources available for prototyping, but we don't have angel investors, we have angel investors, but we don't have VCs. So it's an ecosystem approach that would help us. And don't underestimate the culture. This takes time. It's not an overnight transition from transition economies and we want to be Silicon Valley. This is not going to happen. Silicon Valley did not happen overnight, and it took a lot of public investments, a lot of international political economy conditions to happen. So these things, knowledge needs to marinate. It's like cooking. You need to leave it overnight and see what happens, and it will probably taste better the day after. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anwar. Next one in line of the line of speakers is Mauro Latuada, who's Technology Transfer Manager at Epfl in Lausanne. And he's going to bring us hands-on experience.
Definitely,
Of, TTO.
we will change the perspective, because if Arnwald said is not touching really the real world of technology transfer, what I bring to you today is really a view of how technology transfer is done at EPFL. For the one who doesn't know EPFL, we are a polytechnic in Switzerland. We have almost 1 billion budget per year, 2,000 PhD students. And here, what I would like to present you today is just an overview of how this is done at EPFL. It's just an example. As Arnwald said, we are just one part of creating an ecosystem, but we believe that having a strong technology transfer and a very efficient technology transfer is a key part of this. First, I think that this is the key message I want to give to you, is that we have been mandated from the EPFL, from the Federal Act, to do technology transfer. This is a key message that we have to bring to SME industry. These weeks, I was discussing with Google for selling a patent, and the guy doesn't know at all where EPFL was, because, where is Switzerland, by the way? And it was Sweden, normally Sweden, right? And when I sent him a presentation, he said, wow, you have technology transfer as your key message. That's awesome. And this is definitely the message we want to bring to them. We are a polytechnic, we are a school of engineers, of course. We do also basic science, we do chemistry, whatever. We do a lot of science, even human science beside that. But technology transfer has to be seen from the outside world as a key message of your institution. If you are a research institution, if you are a university. And how this is done? Two main ordinances from the Conseil de l'Epfl. So we have two big laws, very high level, helicopter view, one on IP, how to manage IP at the EPFL. One is about how manage people, because people means sometimes also a conflict of interest. And from these two main laws, we derive our directives on technology transfer, on finance, how to manage money, because in these directives you will see also a suggestion how to remunerate inventors, how to manage, for example, software, but not into detail how to do it. And that's definitely, I think, one of the key strengths of our organizations. And then definitely how the Technology Transfer Office works. I just put here the main tasks that we do at Technology Transfer Office. We deal with research agreements, but how do we do it? I do not put much slide here, but I want just to tell you a few things. Research agreements must be easy, must allow very quick turnaround. So the conditions should be clear for everybody. So you have to facilitate negotiation. That's definitely a key point. People in industry, they need to move fast. Sometimes they have very tight deadline. You have to be to understand what they want. Second, about the research agreement is that you have to give very attractive condition for accessing the IP. That's the key point for them. If they want a result, if they want to patent something, they have to know how they can do it and how this will manage, if you need royalties back or not. That's the kind of thing that attract people to work with your university. And third point, something in which we do not negotiate at all, is it's a fair participation to indirect costs. This means overheads. But overheads are the same for everybody. The day you define your IP condition, you will have your overhead. And that works for everybody. Having a fair, well-known and easy, understandable directives for overheads helps everybody to be aligned. So if you are a big company, if you are Nestle, or if you are a startup, you have the same overhead rates, only depending on your IP. This is the kind of thing that people really like. Second point is, of course, in intellectual property. We are in the place where we do evaluate, we do screening our invention. We have around 120 inventions per year. We file around 70 to 90 patents per year. Protection and management. So this is, I think, it's a key point. We stimulate and support the demonstration of technology. We have a small fund at Epfl. We call it Enable, and we are able to help researchers developing a little bit step forward their invention. Sometimes they need a demonstrator, they need some toxicology tests, they need all this small money just to say that, oh, by the way, this invention has some future. So this is our role at the TTO, because we are the first having the disclosure, evaluating the thing and say, okay, what we can do to transfer this to the industry. Maybe if we do this demonstrator, if we do develop, I don't know, this website, maybe if we can do this test or the other test, we can develop this prototype. This will help us in our work afterwards to license. And of course, if an invention has some value, we are the people negotiating the license. License, once again, are also, as like for the contract, are available for everybody. We have our template on our website, and everybody will be served at the same level. So we will ask for a reimbursement of cost. We will ask for some equity if you are a startup, or some upfront if you are a company. You will have some royalties. Very little royalty rates. We will never ask 10, 20, 25% royalty rates. This is completely nonsense, at least when you have an invention coming from a university. But small royalty rates, even very low, it's a way to make people recognize that this invention comes from public research, from our institution. So this is also a key pillar, I will say, in all the license that we have. Yeah.
Do you combine royalty with upfront payment or with equity, or do you do one of the?
No. We ask always the three. So the same time, yeah. Because it's the thing is it could be very how can I say difficult to manage a company where you have no sales but a huge valuation, or a company which are becoming SME or like this, where there is no valuation but there is a lot of sales. And we have, this case, so we have to always to combine this kind of thing. And more than this, we are also a key point for startuppers at the Epfl. So we know almost all the startup on the campus, because we are the people helping them to do their first due diligence on IP, by the way. Because if you are a PhD student, you want to create your startup, you come to us, we understand what you need for your startup. So we help them to understand what is IP, how to transfer to your startup, how you will develop in the future, how this interaction with your former laboratory is still important. And this is a kind of I will call it this mentoring or tutoring. I don't know how you call it, but the technology transfer office has to have this role forward to the startups. Then, of course, we helped doing technology transfer and IP policy internally for Epfl. And I see in your previous slides about education. Yes, we do practical courses for PhD students. So we have once a year a course where we invite PhD students to come and see a real case of a startup. We open up our books, we open up our license. They sign, of course, NDAs, but they can take a look, mail exchange, patent prosecution stuff, all the information. And this is really a key value for them. So they do not only understand what technology transfer is about, but they understand also how these interactions are with people. I think this is a key message, and it's something that my boss, Gabriel Claire, stressed a lot. To do good technology transfer, you have to deal with science, legal, and business. All the technology transfer office at the Epfl, most of us have experience in science, so most of us, we have a PhD. We have some experience in business. Myself, I built a startup. My friends too. and or we have many years in industry before becoming technology transfer officer, and then we deal with legal. What does it mean, this, in our day-to-day lives? It means that I draft contract, I deal with NDA, I deal with license, and I really do legal. It doesn't mean that I will do legal to the top. If I have a big company in US for an exit, and I have 40 legal in US looking at my license, of course I will have some backup from the legal department at the PFL. But most of the deal, I will tell you, most of the deal are done by technology transfer manager like me, and my boss, of course, because I'm not the one who will sign the license, but I'm the one who will negotiate license. So this is a key skill set that the technology transfer officer should have. So finally, I just summarize here a few key elements for a successful relation with the economy. First is the proximity of the technology transfer officer with your researcher and the faculty. We all know our professor by name. We go having lunch, we go discuss with PhD student, we go in the lab, we see presentation of PhD thesis. We have to go there. It's really a proximity thing. No compromise on quality of the research. The best science will give the best technology transfer. There's no chance to do otherwise, right? Of course, recognition of the technology transfer as a key role of your institution, and active involvement of the management. This is, of course, it's the thing. But the high level we have to have some room to move. Unfortunately, if you deal with business, sometimes there are rules that will not apply if you are strict and very, how can I say, closing into a policy. Sometimes we have to find a way to work out some policies. But that's the way we have to go forward, to make deals with industry. Otherwise, we will not do many of our deals. And I think the key point over here is also the role of lawyers. We have to understand that there are some risks working with industry if you are coming from research, and you have to deal with this. But at the end, the key message here is also that the technology transfer is really a people business. I remember Tom Mackaday from Oxford. He said that researcher, they talk one language, business they talk another language, technology transfer officer talk a third language. So because we are able to talk with all of this. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very useful comments. So, next speaker is Michel Mohan, who's General Manager for Industry Interface at the University of Liège. And what are you at ASTP Proton? Let's see. Vice President of ASTP Proton. Please go ahead.
Can you put my presentation? This one. So, good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to share my experience and what maybe could be better or can be done better for tech transfer in Europe. So I have been asked to speak mainly about involvement of SMEs and academic laboratories in the innovation process. So I am Michel Moran. I am my background, I am electrical engineer, then I did a PhD in physics, and I spent 15 years afterwards in a company, a German company called AEG, well known, but the company has disappeared now.
And then I came back to the university for restructuring and for boosting the innovation process and mainly the knowledge transfer in the university, because in '97 we had in Belgium the Bayh-Dole Act for changing the world of academic research. Then okay, I had some experience in a company, and I think, as it has been said by my colleague from Epfl, in my team, 80% of the people have an industrial experience before coming back to the university and managing tech transfer. My office is about 45 people, half dealing with tech transfer, but half also dealing with boosting innovation. And I've seen in the previous presentation a lot of action which is important to boost innovation in the mind of first the researchers, the university, but also in the ecosystem around the university, in the mind of SMEs also. So, one word of my university, it's a medium-sized university with 24,000 students, €500 million as budget, and half of the budget, more than half of the budget, is dedicated to research. We have 3,500 researchers. And Liège is a city in Belgium, the third city in Belgium with 600,000 inhabitants, and with only one university with all faculties. So we have to deal not only with engineers, but also with medical doctors, veterinarian science, but also human science, more and more. I am also vice president of ISTP Proton, as you mentioned. The ISTP Proton is the Pan-European Association for Knowledge Transfer or Tech Transfer. We are about 900 members around Europe. We have two main missions, is to help tech transfer officers or professionals to improve and to share experience. So we provide a lot of trainings, and we have some members also in the Balkan area, of course. One of our board members is from University of Belgrade. The second mission of ISTP Proton is also to, let's say, to deal with policy in Europe and to be the voice of knowledge transfer from public research regarding the European and EU policy. I'm also the president of LUE, it's the knowledge transfer network in Belgium, so it's the same job. Okay, by working with SMEs, what are the difficulties? Has been already mentioned by colleagues here. But the approaches between university and SMEs are quite different. There is no one better approach than another, but they are just different. Especially the time frame for SMEs. So SMEs, they have to face short-term challenges. They have to carry out a lot of basic things, and as well as finance, legal, market, of course, customers, problems, and also to think development, what is more